Birth has appeared, and that is not stability. It is pressure. A world that could not generate now can, but a single birth does not create a future. It creates a rupture. If rupture does not connect to another rupture, it collapses into silence. The system now faces a hidden risk. If birth happens once and never again, existence resets. Resetting erases accumulation. And without accumulation, nothing grows stronger. This is the true threshold. Birth must not remain an event. It must become repeatable. If repetition fails, time remains hollow, flowing, but empty. So the question changes. Not can something begin, but can beginning sustain itself? And that answer will determine whether time continues or dissolves. An occurrence disrupts, a pattern persists. Birth has disrupted the structure, but it has not yet formed a pattern. If each generation stands alone, the system rebuilds from zero. Zero cannot accumulate force. Accumulation requires transfer. Transfer requires stability, and stability requires repetition. Without repetition, birth becomes noise. Noise does not organize power. The world is no longer asking, can something appear? It is asking, can something carry forward? Because only what carries forward can build consequence. And consequence is the beginning of weight. If weight increases, balance shifts. If balance shifts, structure must respond. And structure has not yet fully formed. Continuity is not duration. Duration stretches a moment. Continuity links moments. Linkage transforms isolated birth into lineage. Lineage is not memory, it is transmission. Memory recall, transmission embeds. When transmission stabilizes, time acquires direction. Direction does not require intention, it requires persistence. If structure survives beyond a single cycle, it begins to extend. Extension is not expansion, it is continuity with difference. Difference allows variation. Variation allows complexity. And complexity demands hierarchy. Hierarchy is not yet visible, but its foundation has already begun to form. Because once continuity stabilizes, power no longer dies with the individual. Before repetition, time erased itself. It flowed, and nothing remained. Now something remains. Each birth leaves residue. Residue accumulates. Accumulation creates density. Density alters balance. A world with density cannot remain neutral. Neutral systems remain static. Dense systems evolve. If repetition continues, imprint becomes structure. If structure stabilizes, weight increases. Weight generates consequence. Consequence forces alignment. Alignment is the first sign of organized power. Power has no face yet. No name. No embodiment. But it is condensing. Because once time retains imprint, it stops dissolving into emptiness and begins preparing for something larger than individual emergence. Movement shifts position. A current sustains direction. Birth is becoming a current. Each generation no longer replaces. It extends. Extension transforms separation into passage. Intervals are no longer gaps. They are bridges. Bridges create networks. Networks multiply influence. Influence stabilizes force. Force that stabilizes seeks embodiment. Embodiment has not occurred yet, but accumulation is nearing threshold. If continuity strengthens, condensation becomes inevitable. Condensation creates role. Role creates hierarchy. Hierarchy creates structure, and structure, once formed, does not remain abstract. Something will soon emerge that does not merely exist, but organizes existence. And when that happens, time will no longer simply continue. It will take form. Repetition is no longer optional. It is becoming structural. If birth does not repeat, continuity fractures. But repetition alone is insufficient. It must preserve pattern. Pattern allows recognition. Recognition allows reinforcement. Without reinforcement, cycles weaken. The system now begins to favor what survives transmission. Survival is not random. It is structural compatibility. What aligns with continuity persists. What fails to align dissolves. Dissolution reduces density. Density must increase, because only increasing density can trigger condensation. Condensation does not ask permission. It occurs when threshold is crossed. And the threshold is approaching. Repetition is no longer an accident. It is stabilizing into rule. Once rule stabilizes, time no longer merely flows, it organizes. Scale defines influence. Small accumulations shift locally. Large accumulations shift structure. Birth has begun to accumulate. Accumulation alters scale. When scale changes, interaction intensifies. Interactions compound. Compounding increases pressure. Pressure seeks release. Release requires form. Form requires boundary. Boundary requires distinction. Distinction has not yet hardened. But it is sharpening, because accumulation is uneven. Uneven accumulation creates gradients. Gradients generate direction. Direction consolidates flow. Flow that consolidates begins to centralize. Centralization prepares dominance. Dominance is not yet visible, but its preconditions are assembling silently. And silent assembly always precedes manifestation. Transmission was fragile. Now it stabilizes. Stability transforms repetition into inheritance. Inheritance locks sequence. Sequence locks direction. Direction reduces randomness. Reduced randomness increases predictability. Predictability strengthens alignment. Alignment strengthens persistence. Persistence amplifies density. Density amplifies consequence. Consequence demands coordination. Coordination cannot remain abstract. Abstract systems diffuse. Coordinated systems concentrate. Concentration produces axis. Axis organizes motion. Motion aligned to axis produces structure. Structure has not yet appeared, but its axis is already forming. And once an axis stabilizes, emergence accelerates. Until now, birth created extension. Now, extension begins to resist dispersion. Resistance marks transition. When continuity resists dissolution, it becomes force. Force seeks coherence. Coherence creates boundary. Boundary defines interior. Interior defines identity. Identity precedes embodiment. Embodiment follows density. Density has been rising silently. Silence does not mean inactivity. It means preparation. The system has crossed another invisible threshold. Time is no longer passive. It is accumulating intention without consciousness. An accumulation at this scale cannot remain without form. The question is no longer whether something will emerge, but how soon coherence will solidify. Pressure does not imply destruction. It implies transition. The world is not breaking. It is compressing. Compression increases intensity. Intensity narrows variation. Narrowed variation sharpens pattern. Sharpened pattern enhances cohesion. Cohesion multiplies strength. Strength that multiplies seeks stabilization. Stabilization requires embodiment. Embodiment requires consolidation. Consolidation demands hierarchy. Hierarchy cannot arise without concentrated lineage. Lineage has been consolidating. generation after generation, each cycle reinforcing the previous. Time is no longer open field. It is structured channel. Channels guide force, and guided force cannot remain unformed indefinitely. Continuity now has weight. Weight alters equilibrium. Equilibrium under weight cannot remain neutral. Neutrality collapses under density. Density reorders balance. Reordered balance favors concentration. Concentration favors dominance. Dominance stabilizes hierarchy. Hierarchy crystallizes structure. Structure channels power. Power amplifies repetition. Repetition strengthens continuity. The cycle is closing upon itself. Closed cycles intensify. Intensified systems reach structural inevitability. Inevitability does not announce itself. It accumulates quietly. The quiet phase is nearing completion. Because continuity at this scale cannot remain abstract much longer. It must localize. And localization always changes the world. Flow is flexible, framework is rigid. Time has been flowing. Now it begins to framework. Framework emerges when repetition locks alignment. Locked alignment resists deviation. Resistance creates spine. Spine organizes movement. Organized movement produces layered structure. Layered structure supports dominance. Dominance stabilizes role. Role stabilizes hierarchy. Hierarchy shapes reality. Reality shaped by hierarchy no longer drifts. It consolidates. Consolidation narrows potential. Narrowed potential intensifies emergence. Emergence under intensity becomes embodiment. Embodiment is approaching, not as accident, but as structural necessity. There is a moment when accumulation becomes irreversible. That moment has passed silently. Continuity is now self-reinforcing. Self-reinforcing systems do not regress easily. They accelerate. Acceleration reduces instability. Reduced instability amplifies consolidation. Consolidation centralizes influence. Centralized influence prepares authority. Authority requires embodiment. Embodiment requires condensation. Condensation is no longer distant. The sequence is tightening. Each generation increasing coherence. Coherence intensifying density. Density approaching critical mass. Critical mass transforms potential into presence. Presence alters scale. Scale alters history. And history is about to begin taking form. Lineage has grown dense. Density seeks anchor. Anchor requires boundary. Boundary requires form. Form stabilizes influence. Influence extends reach. Reach consolidates dominance. Dominance finalizes hierarchy. Hierarchy clarifies role. Role organizes existence. Existence under organized role no longer drifts. It solidifies. Solidification transforms abstraction into structure. Structure transforms repetition into order. Order intensifies stability. Stability allows expansion. Expansion under stability creates domain. Domain requires embodiment. Embodiment is no longer optional. It is demanded by accumulated continuity. Something must now arise to carry the weight of time. Accumulation has peaked. Peak conditions demand release. Release under density produces emergence. Emergence under order produces role. Role under lineage produces authority. Authority under repetition produces permanence. Permanence stabilizes scale. Scale reorganizes reality. Reality reorganized cannot revert to neutrality. Neutrality has ended. Time is no longer empty field. It is structured inheritance. Inheritance demands carriers. Carriers demand identity. Identity demands embodiment. Embodiment is imminent. The structure has prepared itself. Now it requires a presence capable of sustaining accumulated force. Continuity can no longer remain invisible. Invisible weight destabilizes systems. Stabilization requires manifestation. Manifestation requires structure. Structure requires differentiation. Differentiation clarifies hierarchy. Hierarchy defines dominance. Dominance stabilizes order. Order concentrates power. Power under concentration cannot remain dispersed. Dispersion has ended. Concentration is complete. Time has thickened. Lineage has hardened. Accumulation has condensed. The system now stands on the verge of embodiment. What emerges next will not be an individual event. It will be structured force, and structured force changes the scale of existence. All preconditions are aligned. Continuity is stable. Transmission is hardened. Density is critical. Pressure is contained. Hierarchy is implied. Authority is forming. Nothing collapses. Nothing breaks. And yet, the system cannot remain unembodied. Unembodied structure creates instability. Stability requires manifestation. Manifestation requires entity. Entity requires role. Role requires domain. Domain requires structure. The structure is ready. Time has prepared its vessel. Now only one transition remains, from accumulated lineage to embodied order. Birth made continuation possible. Repetition made continuation stable. Lineage made continuation directional. Accumulation made continuation dense. Now, Continuation becomes structure. Time has crossed its final threshold. It no longer merely connects generations, it organizes them. Organization demands embodiment. Embodiment creates carriers of structure. Carriers of structure stabilize power. Power stabilized defines the age to come. What emerges next will not drift. It will define alignment. It will carry accumulated continuity. It will shape the order of existence. And when it appears, time will no longer simply continue. It will take form. In the next episode, structure will finally stand.